thank you all for being here today with us. It's been a delightful experience hearing our colleagues previously closing up on very important topics as well and sharing with us their insights on what's going on currently at this situation. All right, just 1 minute, and here we go. Hopefully you can see my screen clearly. All right, so I'll start by talking about some perspectives concerning quality in higher education. As we've seen before from our colleagues, most of the topics have been tackled, but we'll go through the introduction, just a quick introduction and look at quality in higher education. So of course, it encompasses various aspects from the curriculum to infrastructure, faculty competence, and the overall student experience. I guess Dr. Mahuku just focused on all of those within her presentation as well, but it is quite important to take all into consideration while we're going through the quality in higher education process. And HE ranking also does quite a good job, and hopefully we look to the future and prospect of HE ranking within covering all those aspects. All right, concerning the definition, we also listened to a definition from Dr. Kayari at the beginning of the conference. I'd like to highlight the definition presented by Diana Green, Peter Knight, Lee Harvey, which highlights the point of quality meaning different things for different people and different levels and stages within the university lifespan as well. Upcoming universities review quality as a challenge. Higher education seems to them more difficult, yet it also relates to, the definition also relates to quality is relative to the process and the outcomes, which Dr. Mahuku kind of focused on inputs and outputs. So it's quite important to take that into consideration. All right, let's move on. So the importance of quality in higher education, quality education as a whole. So it is the bedrock of progress, the cycle which we saw a couple of minutes ago, the innovation within the teaching process, the societal development as a reflection of what happens within the academy and as the graduates go to their lives, their jobs, and so on. It equips individuals with skills and knowledge necessary for competitive and evolving global landscape. Again, Dr. Mafouk kind of mentioned the evolution that we're going through right now as the world moves through the fourth industrial revolution. So the landscape is quite itself a challenge, and we'll take more of a look at that as we go along. Current state of higher education, I'll be touching on some points mentioned as well previously by some of our colleagues. So one of the first things I'd like to put up is global disparities. So there are significant disparities in quality of higher education worldwide. Developed nations often have robust systems, while developing nations face challenges in infrastructure, faculty development, and curriculum design. The ability to actually grab in or attract professors who have been cited quite frequently, have a high number of citations. The ability for developing countries to actually grab the attention of those key players, professors, lecturers, and so on, is quite difficult when it comes to the resources that are available. Sometimes their geographical presence in a certain area also restricts access to such professors and key personnel. While quite the opposite would go for countries with more resources, available resources, and more agile systems that can actually adapt to new workforce and new lecturers and professors. So it's quite a problem when it comes to that. One thing I'd also like to point out when it comes to global disparities, the One Laptop Per Child initiative in Uruguay significantly noted down the digital divide, improving access, and here we have to focus on improve the access, but not necessarily quality, of course, the access to quality education. And as we all know, I assume around 1 out of every 25 students, for example, in Northwest Syria, university students would actually have a personal laptop. Of course, that's a great difficulty for them to tackle, doing the research, even writing. their knowledge of how to use the computer and their access to websites and so on and so forth. A great limitation when it comes to developing countries. All right. Moving on, technology integration within the higher education, of course, the ongoing digital revolution is reshaping our educational system around the world, from online learning platforms, artificial intelligence, as we've all come to know. In the classroom, technology is both a challenge and an opportunity. It's a challenge because we must keep up to date with it, of course. And as my previous colleagues also mentioned, we noticed that how students have quickly adapted to using AI, ChatGPT, and so on, while at an academic level, at an institution level, we still haven't figured out a mechanism to make sure that we have no problems concerning plagiarism and so on and so forth. Of course, when it comes to learning platforms, the rise of massive open online courses, MWCs, Coursera, for example, we have other institutions like edX, so on and so forth, LinkedIn Learning. And so all of these availabilities that are these opportunities for students to go through that learning throughout lifetime span, continuous learning are also available. So it is a constraint and an opportunity at the same time. All right, diversity and inclusion is the third point. So ensuring quality education for all requires addressing issues of diversity and inclusion as well. Equity in access and outcomes is key. It's a key metric for evaluating the effectiveness of higher education to make sure that all are on the same page. A note here I'd like to point to would be Anand Kumar from India with his Super 30 program, where he actually had limited resources, yet was able to sponsor a selected number of students who he tutored and were able to go on through their higher education. A great reflection on how certain individuals, on the impact that we can all have when we provide access to those who are a bit unfortunate. All right, industrial alignment, again, a very, very important topic. The question arises, are our higher education systems producing graduates ready for the demands of the job market or the workforce? Are we able to actually bridge the gap between academia and the relevance of what we're actually, students' capabilities and skills that they have? We noticed that this is a two-way door. As academia, we always try to evaluate the market, see what necessities do needs analysis, what skills, what capabilities should our graduates have. And at the same time, we noticed that other corporations may enter the academia domain and try to make sure that they're getting what they need out of the academy. So it's a two-way door. A nice example here would be Apple's collaboration with Arizona State University to offer coding and app development courses. Moving on, I'm going to be covering some challenges that we face in the upcoming future. So funding, of course, the main problem, or which can't be dodged, let's say. So many higher education institutions face financial constraints affecting their infrastructure, research capabilities, and faculty salaries. And of course, once again, it's a continuing cycle. Lower faculty salaries may lead to less research capabilities, may have less infrastructure, and so on and so forth. According to the UNESCO, generally speaking, education accounts for only 2.7% of the global GDP, and we have to understand that stability is not something to be taken for granted. Earthquakes, the pandemic that we all went through, and the crisis in Eastern Europe, are all things that cause us to be a bit concerned in the future, hopefully not affecting the general spending on education. Quality assurance is another topic, another area. So maintaining and assuring consistent quality across diverse educational institutions is a persistent challenge. It's an ongoing challenge. Accreditation systems play a vital role, but are not universally implemented. So having a unified body, having standards that everyone can go through is not always available. Our first speaker today, my colleague, mentioned the Bologna process in Europe, how it's been instrumental in creating standardized framework for higher education. Adopting such methods, such processes on other regional levels or areas would hopefully help in overcoming this challenge in the future. A lot of work through the learning process. Technology gaps, again, the challenge of technology. So technology does offer tremendous opportunities, does break the walls and barriers that we have around the world, but there are still gaps in access and digital literacy. A huge problem when it comes to developing countries. The digital divide, what has been known to be called the digital divide, could exacerbate existing inequalities as well. The gap is quite growing. Access to internet speed, high internet speed is not available everywhere, and the devices being used, although mobile smartphones are used quite commonly today, access to laptops, again, is quite a challenge. All right, number 4, I'd like to go over changing demands. So another problem, an issue that we have. The rapidly evolving nature of industries requires constant adaptation in curricula. A problem that we all face when it comes to changing the curriculum, whether it's updating or refining or changing it altogether, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of time, and it needs devotion as well. And you have to be insightful to what's going on in the surrounding context, the area that you're in, the region, and then be able to estimate the future of what should be appropriate as a curriculum for the graduates and students as well. So the question is, are our educational systems actually agile enough to keep up with the pace, the speed that we're in? According to the World Economic Forum, estimates that by 2025, half of all employees will need reskilling. Again, that would put a lot of pressure on our institutions. Will we actually be able to provide such huge difficulties? Come up with them, actually stand up for that challenge. Globalization, another challenge. So higher education is becoming increasingly globalized as we move on. How do we balance the integration of global perspectives with the preservation of our local relevance? How do we create that balance within good global practices, yet at the same time preserve our cultural identity? Singaporean education system went through a long, worked a lot, and came up with excellent results, which boosted their educational system, hopefully. A lot to be learned from the Singaporean education system when it comes to that. So this is quite a challenge, how to balance between the two, not to be seen going too global and yet not being too tight and restricted to your own regional cultural identity at the same time. Let's take some look at perspectives, opportunities that we might have, hopefully. So innovative pedagogies is one point. The rise of experimental learning projects, based assessment, and collaborative platforms opens up new possibilities for engaging and effective teaching methods. The story of High Tech High in San Diego, students work on real-world projects, which actually showcases the effectiveness of this approach. So having hands-on experience when it comes to learning, having assessment, which is actually based on the projects themselves that are being done by graduates, are all very key issues when it comes to learning. So the pedagogy itself, which is continuously improving, hopefully, we're supposed to make use of such an issue. Technology as an enabler. So as we mentioned before, technology does have its gaps, but it also enables us, hopefully, to move forward. So leveraging technologies such as AI, which was mentioned quite before, virtual reality, crossing the borders, putting down all borders actually, and online platforms can democratize education, making it accessible to a broader audience. And hopefully all institutions are to make use of that. And as a SIE ranking, we as well would make use of such an issue. Just a pointer here. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, the global e-learning market was estimated to reach somewhere around $375 billion. Huge opportunity for all universities and ranking systems to make use of this new enablers or technological abilities. Interdisciplinary programs, quite a complex issue. Breaking down traditional silos of fostering interdisciplinary programs can better prepare students for the complexities of the real world. And in developing countries, or let's say in my own experience, we've suffered with actually convincing whether it be professors or so on and so forth, or staff or stakeholders, to actually be a bit more flexible when it comes to merging or more than one major together and allowing for more connections, collaborations between them as well. Yet the developments in more developed countries, they've seemed to have finished or gone through this gap quite quickly. So as an example here, I'd like to point out the development of the first wearable computer at MIT's Media Lab. Involved collaboration between computer scientists, engineers, and of course, designers. A lot of work there, highlighting, of course, the importance of and the future of interdisciplinary programs. Another point, global collaboration, of course, is another important aspect that we have to look for. Partnerships between institutions across borders can lead to a rich exchange of ideas, resources, and cultural understanding. Of course, whether it be students, or whether it be lecturers and professors and so on. As a pointer here, also mentioned previously, Erasmus Plus. So over 9 million people have actually participated in the Erasmus Plus program since its inception in 1987, which allowed exchange between students among European colleges. All right. Similar regional programs, I think, would help improve as well. Lifelong learning concept, as we mentioned before, the concept of education as a one-time endeavor is evolving. Lifelong learning is supported by continuous upskilling and reskilling. Opportunities is becoming actually a norm. According to what I was able to get in 2022, LinkedIn Learning, which is part of LinkedIn actually, reported at a 1,200% increase in the consumption of learning content. Of course, as I mentioned before, Coursera, edX, other platforms which provide courses for the continual development of personal skills. All right, the final point I'll be talking about is focus on soft skills. So even though in higher education, a lot of major core subjects are actually studied, estimated, and ranked, but it's also important for us to make sure that our graduates are able to go to the workforce with those soft skills. So employability is not just about technical skills. Soft skills such as critical thinking, communication, and adaptability are gaining more prominence. This is an opportunity, of course. For example, Google's project Oxygen, which identified key qualities for effective team, highlighted the importance of soft skills such as empathy and communication. I'm coming to the conclusion, and I'd like to point out that in conclusion, the prospects for the quality of higher education are promising, but require concerted efforts from all stakeholders, as mentioned by Dr. Makuku previously, a heartful speech there. Of course, in nurturing excellence in higher education, we collectively contribute to a brighter, more innovative future. And thank you all. If there are anything else, Mr. Mustafa, I'd be glad to comment.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was a wonderful presentation. It was brilliant. You highlighted general perspective, quality assurance at different areas, at different, strategies and plans, and how it was, coined and how it reached nowadays. And you also have highlighted something very important, which is reskilling. In other words, even our employees for the moment, by the development of technology, we need by the time to rehabilitate them, provide them with more training. And this highlights the importance of training in the coming days, because it's not only about we stopped education, it's about lifelong learning. And this is also one of the prospects of ranking. It was one of the indicators that education ranking is focusing on that we always need training at any other time for our operations. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If there is no other questions, I would like to welcome Dr. Afshak Komar from Symbiosis International University to provide. Okay, Dr. Violet, before Dr. Afshak, Dr. Violet, you would like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. The previous speaker, thank you for raising the issue of the Bologna process. It reminded me that our international ranking, now that it's no longer about Europe, it's no longer about one continent. Yes, one of the key issues we need to focus on is to check our ranking criteria and makes it truly global, truly global, so that whatever parameters we are trying to measure, in America, they are there, Australia, Asia, Africa, you know, you may even have some parameters which may not necessarily apply to Africa right now. I just want to give a quick example that recently the Times Higher Education rankings, you know, the world rankings, but now they've done an approach where they are doing it also for continents, individual continents, America, South America, Asia, Africa. And I'm also a board member for the Sub-Saharan Africa. So why did they do that? One of the key issues is, of course, as much as we want homogeneity, we cannot afford it because of the geographical setups, the economics, the types of the institutions, the size of the institutions, and the whole lot of things, the variations that are there among institutions. So I liked that point which he raised about internationalization, integration. That's what his presentation entailed when he talked about we need to make sure we are just looking at what the Bologna process did. And so, in terms of our HE higher education, I talked about benchmarking. That's one way of us gradually trying to bring in our own higher education rankings so that it matches the international standards or surpass the current prevailing bodies which are doing
yes,
rankings.
Exactly, or surpasses it. Yes, exactly. Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Abshak.